Hey, welcome back to True-Moto-Resto, and in this video we're going to start tackling the bodywork on the junkyard slabby. Got all the bikes in the background covered up so they don't get covered in dust. Stay tuned. So disassembling the bodywork now, and so this V-brace had one bolt missing, and then all the others are kind of mismatched, so that's gonna have to get sorted out. There's some missing bolts in the bottom of this as well, and I'm not even sure that these are the right length, the ones that are in it now, because in actual fact that one was so long that it actually over time had rubbed on the exhaust headers and put a hole right through the Vance and Hines headers. Now that could be because they were, the aftermarket exhaust system settled a bit lower than the stock one. They might be the originals, I don't know, but either way that's gonna have to get sorted out. There they are underneath. They might be OEM, I don't know, but yeah, it's a mess. So here are the mid panels, and to disassemble these, I'm basically it's just removing all of these screws that hold these plastic trim pieces on, as well as the reflectors that have to come off with these bolts. So, all right, so this is the upper fairing. Just to give you an idea of what I'm dealing with as far as the repairs go. So this has obviously been repaired before. My guess is this is kind of one of those, it might be one of those two-part epoxies in the syringe that somebody has kind of laid on the crack on the inside. And there's more of it there. This has been plastic welded here. More of the epoxy here. Plastic welding here. Epoxy laid down here. Some epoxy of some sort laid down here. Something is snapped off here, and you can actually see the ABS is kind of been pushed through, so it's not evenly aligned anymore. And then this piece is completely broken away. There's crack right in there. This has got cracks, and somebody's plastic welded that a little bit as well. So yeah, it's and this is fairly typical. See the cracks on the outside, missing chunk here, and then this is the piece where this is kind of pushed through. So yeah, I mean, it cracks here, nothing unusual, let's put it that way. This is exactly what I think I would expect to find on a bike this old, especially a sport bike. And they tend to get thrown down the road numerous times over their life, so no real surprise. But the good news is I love plastic welding, just love it. So what I'm going to do first here is get rid of that piece. I'm going to try to just basically put some relief in this section here, because I'd like to be able to push this level, but I can't. It's bound up too much. And I'm just going to risk doing more damage, I think, if I do that. So if I cut a little bit of relief in here, I can get this surface and this surface kind of aligned again. This is the tool that I'm using. It's just a diamond dust coated, really fine point. That's what I'm using. So now it's starting to come back now. If I add a little bit of heat to that, it should come right back to where I need it to be. So now it's much more even. And as far as this broken piece here goes, what I'm going to have to do, I think, is I want to clean off whatever's on the back side of this, because there's obviously a bunch of epoxy and stuff like that on here, and I don't want to be doing any plastic welding with that still attached to the back, because it just ends up contaminating the weld. So I'm going to see what I can do about cleaning some of that off, and then what I typically like to do is I'm just going to try to get it installed here so that all these surfaces are flush. See, right now there's a bit of a step here, and you can't weld that stuff in when you've got an uneven surface, because otherwise you just end up with way too much filler. So you've got to get the surfaces really, really, really close. I'm not even going to worry too much about grinding this surface for the weld at this point. I want to tack it in place so it's level, and then what I would do is go to the back side and grind it clean, properly weld it from the back, and then once I know that it's firmly in place, then I'll come back to this side, grind all the paint off, and attach it permanently. But the idea for me is tack it just so that this is all flush and you get it in the right spot, and then permanently attach it later. All right, well, we're going to see how this goes. This is the soldering iron I use for my plastic welding. It's just this is a cheap one off Amazon, but it works pretty well. I like the angle chisel tip for doing this sort of stuff. I typically set it at 400 degrees. So I think, again, my challenge here is going to be to get this first top surface to sit level and be able to stitch it all in place while I do that. All right, I'm going to try it again. I wasn't happy with the first try. All right, so here's basically what I've done is I've just kind of stitched that so it's basically in place there. And on the back side, I've just started to do the same thing. This is the only purpose of this is to get it where I want it and to stop it moving around when I actually start the main welding process. So this is a ABS welding rod, and basically it's similar to just welding metal. And the plan is, once I've welded this side properly, I'll take the little belt sander there and I'll sand the other side to get the paint off it, give myself a clean surface to weld the other side. All right, so there's what it looks like on the inside. So it's been basically, it doesn't have to look pretty because it's all going to get sanded anyway. But that at least kind of stabilizes it. So then now I can take my sander and come back to this side, because as I mentioned earlier, this, even though I kind of stitched it here already, it's this was not the permanent solution, obviously, because it's kind of all pretty rough. And so I'm going to take the sander, take all of this paint off, get it back to the original ABS plastic, remove any other fillers and epoxies that might be on there, and then I'll weld the outside. So here's what I'm not super keen on. This is the only thing that kind of makes welding old plastic a bit of a pain in the neck is the, I don't know if you can see here, you'll see there's kind of two shades of black or gray here. So the darker stuff is the original ABS plastic. The lighter stuff is an epoxy of some sort that was used to originally kind of, I guess, fix a crack that was in here in the past. So I don't like that stuff there, because it stops me getting a good weld or a good bond. So what I'm gonna have to do, unfortunately, is I'm gonna weld around here first, and then I'm gonna stop here, and I'm gonna grind all of this out, get rid of all this old epoxy if I can, and then I'm gonna build it back up with new ABS welding rod. So I've gone to here, and now I gotta start to dig out this epoxy stuff here before I continue stitching it up. And I should mention that, similar to welding metal, you want to make sure that if you're going to try this, that you kind of go through 50% on each side. So when I welded the back side, I went through halfway, and then I welded halfway through on this side, and that way you kind of have, you know, you've gone through 100% of the plastic. And then once I've welded everything up, I'll take my my sander and I'll just kind of smoothen this off. Okay, there's the back side, and there is the front side. So by the time I had dug out all of that epoxy, there was a big gaping hole right the way through. So I ended up just having to bridge it all the way along. And now I'm going to take my little wee belt sander here and just smooth all of that off. So there we are after all the rough bits have been ground off. So now I can do whatever I choose to do next, which is a couple of different things. There's a product that I use called Plastex, which is a liquid ABS plastic that works really well for just putting a final strengthening layer on here, as well as just kind of smoothing things out. So I might put that on there. This is the other side after I've ground it down. That's that crack at the bottom. Or you can just kind of go straight to filler. The other option I have for a little bit of extra strength, which I'm still a little bit concerned about this section here, because you can still see this vein of epoxy that kind of stretches beyond where I had done the repair. So what I might do is, I have a plastic welding gun that puts like melts a staple in there for additional strength. So I might do that. Right, so this is the plastic welding gun that I have, and you put these little metal staples in the end, and then you pull the trigger, it basically heats them up, and it just melts right in. Give it a little twist, let it cool for a second. I find if you give them, my buddy of mine told me that if you give them a little twist, they tend to stay underneath the plastic a little bit better. There we go. I put in 3 wave staples, and then I put in 5 straight staples. So yeah, that should, between all the plastic welding and this, I wanted to reinforce this area just because on the inside there's still some of that, the epoxy there. So I think that should be good. And then I'm going to sand off any of these little metal pieces that are still sticking out. You cut these off with a pair of side cutters. So they've all been cut off, but you can still see them sticking up there. So I'll sand those off with my little belt sander. And then I still think I'm going to put some plastex solution in here as well. That'll just give it some extra strength. Alright, so what I've done is I've basically ground away any of the old unsightly adhesive that was on there. And I've also ground away any of the cracks. So basically this one was pretty bad. There wasn't much left, there isn't much left of the original ABS here, same as the spot up here. It's a big gaping hole and crater there, so that all has to be filled in. I still have to grind out the rest of the filler that was in here, because this has to be, you can't fix ABS plastic if you've got body filler in there, so you got to get rid of all of that. And I still got to grind out this one and this one and this one. There's cracks here as well, but basically my approach is, if it's got a crack, I'm grinding it right back to the original ABS plastic, and then I'll repair it all fresh. If it's an old repair and it's lasted the test of time, like this one, this really did well, but I didn't want the unsightly bead of adhesive or whatever it was in there, so I'm going to leave that. I'm not going to dig that out because it's, you know, it hasn't cracked again on the other side, so obviously it was a decent repair that was done. But what I am going to do is I'm going to use the plastic welding gun and put some staples across here. just so it gives it some extra strength. And same with this one here. This one has also lasted well, so I'm going to do the same thing there. But yes, some of these areas up in here, these need to be repaired properly. All this is really bad. It's really shattered pretty good, and I still need to get rid of some. There's still some spots of some sort of epoxy in there that still need to come out as well. So anywhere where I had holes all the way through the ABS plastic, I welded those up. This is kind of one example. This was all the way through. They've been welded from the other side. And what I've done on this one already is I've put a product on called plastex. And what plastex is, this is the box, plastex.net. And basically what you get, and there's different size kits and there's different colored powder and whatnot. I just usually get the black. So you basically in the shop size kit, which this is 250 grams of plastex powder, 250 milliliters of the plastex liquid, and you can basically put the powder into a little container like this, which they give you. And this is a little distribution bottle and they give you a couple of these needles. And basically there's a hole on the side of the needle which allows you to drip the product out in a more controlled fashion. And there's two ways you can apply this stuff. You can kind of do the drip and pick approach. So basically what that is you drop one drop of the plastex into the powder, and then you immediately pick it up with the needle, and then you put it onto your repair spot. And then you kind of squeeze it off by applying a little bit more liquid. I'll show you how to do that in a second. The other way, which is what I did here, is you kind of position the piece so that this is kind of fairly level. And then you can just pour the powder on or spoon the powder on or whatever into the repair area, and then you can just go along and drip the solution on with that after the fact. So it just kind of really depends on how big the repair area is, and you know, what's going to be easier to do. So I'm going to try to hold this repair area flat, and I'm going to try to get this in shot if I can. So basically, I dripped it in, and now I've picked up this blob of powder. And now I'm just going to squeeze the bottle, and it will lay that down. And you can just keep squeezing depending on how much liquid you want to come out and how you want it to flow. So that's kind of that repair. So now I just picked up another blob. I squeeze the bottle. And then you just kind of use the needle and the liquid to move that in place. Drop, pick, and then you just kind of squeeze. So I guess, you know, one method is kind of if the repair area is smaller and you need a little bit more control, then maybe the drop and pick it up method is better. If you've got a very large area, then you know, maybe the spooning it into the repair spot works best. But I just pick and choose. And for things like the edge here, where obviously that's just going to drip right off, what I will do is, once this is kind of dried up a little bit, which I can help along with the heat gun, not too hot, but it'll just help it skin over so it doesn't run. But basically what I can do is I use foil tape, and just put a piece of foil tape on the back and fold it up around the side, and just kind of create a little dam so it can't go anywhere. And then you can just drip the product right in there, and then wait until it dries. Now the really cool thing, if you don't know if you've seen any of my other videos, if you haven't, there's a couple of examples out there. I think when I was doing the repair work on the Kawasaki ZX-7, you can use this stuff to actually make missing component. So if you recall, on a lot of bodywork, there's kind of a lug that you can, that kind of goes into a rubber grommet. I think if I show you on the this bodywork I have out here, there might be an example. I'm pretty sure there was, but yeah, here we go. Yeah, right here. So these kinds of lugs here, they're pretty commonly broken off on a lot of motorcycles over the years as the ABS plastic gets more and more brittle and people become more and more ham-fisted. And finding those things to glue on can be difficult or expensive. But plastex gives you, they give you these molding bars, and it just comes in a block. They give you 2 of them, but you can kind of cut them up and make different sizes depending on your needs. And what you do with these molding blocks is you heat them up, and I use a heat gun in a tray, and I do have to be very careful when I want to heat this stuff up, because it's got to be hot in order to become pliable. You can heat this stuff up and it becomes very, very pliable, malleable, and you can put it over top of one of those lugs. If you've got one lug there and one lug missing, you can reproduce this by putting it over top of the lug, which is what this one was. You can see the shape of it, and you kind of squeeze it around over top, let it dry, or cool I should say, and once it cools it becomes quite firm. You peel it off, and then now you've got a perfect mold inside there, and you just put the plastex powder in, kind of a layer at a time. Plastex powder, liquid, powder, liquid, powder, liquid, and you build it all the way up to the top and let it sit overnight, and then you can extract that newly casted part out of the mold. Sometimes, depending on the shape, that can be difficult, but it can be done. I've done it many times. And bingo, you've got yourself a nice ABS plastic lug that you can then attach to the broken panel. My experience so far has been that the strength of that product, when you reattach things, when you fit like in here, or when you make new parts, they seem to be every bit as strong as the original part. Okay, so there's another repair I did with the plastex. I welded it up first on the back side, and then I just made a little dam out of the foil tape and filled that in. Same up here. And it's fine if it's kind of not even, because you can just take a grinder or whatever and smooth it out after. So the lower fairings are probably the next worst as far as needing repairs or old repairs that need to be cleaned up. The other panels, like the tail section and the mid fairings and whatnot, are not bad at all. They don't need much repair. But these lower fairings, belly pan, whatever you want to call it, you can see that it's kind of got those large beads of epoxy. There's another nice repair there. And I mean, the reality is, though, I mean, I can criticize the way that it looks on the inside, and it looks awful on the inside, but on the outside, it hasn't cracked. My guess is that this is actually a result of something after that was done, so I will have to repair. I'm going to take all this crap off the inside and clean that up on the outside, but, you know, it worked. I can't say it didn't work. It definitely worked. And then on the upper fairing, you can see where all the repairs have been made to that, so it's starting to look good. There's still a couple of little spots I gotta still address. So there's all of the junk removed from the inside, and that little spider crack. Yeah, basically it's just kind of, it's a bit of a mess in this area for sure. So, all right, so I mentioned about casting and creating missing pieces. So I'm just heating up this molding bar, because what I'm going to do next is, you can see that one of those lugs there for attaching the trim on this mid panel, it should look like that. It looks like that. I have all the pieces right there, but I'm going to try casting a new one. So I'm going to take a mold off that one and then try to cast it in place there. Alright, so that stuff's real hot. I mean, it's kind of borderline burning the fingers when I'm doing that. But anyway, so what I've done is I've kind of squozen that around one of these as tight as I can get it to make sure that I get all of the right impregnation there, and I've kind of pushed down on the top to force some of this molding bar inside the hole. So that way when I cast the new piece and then extract it, I'll know where exactly on center that I can drill the hole out better. This, I've just kind of taken my Dremel tool and cleaned around it. So the process will be, I'm going to leave that for an hour. I'll take it off once it's cooled and it's hard, and then I can fill it up with the plastex liquid and powder, which is all here. Powder's there. And then once that's in there, I let that dry overnight, and then I can extract the new casted piece out of there tomorrow, and then I can set it on there, and probably what I'll have to do is I'll have to zip that off flat, because this will be kind of cast with a flat base. So I'll probably end up having to zip that right off smooth, and then I can just kind of set it on there and use the plastex to set it in place and to attach it. Okay, so there's my mold I just pulled off. So you can see the kind of the shape of it there. It's got the 3 tabs on each side, which shows that perfectly. And if you look real careful inside there, you can kind of see the where I pushed it down inside the hole. So now I can kind of set that down there and start filling it with plastex powder and liquid. Stick the needle in here a little bit. Lots of liquid in, just to make sure it flows into all of the right places. Some more in there. A little bit more liquid. Perfect. So now that can basically dry overnight, and then we'll extract that tomorrow. Sometimes, like this one isn't really a very complicated shape. It might pop out fairly easily. When you get into these kinds of shapes, recreating that, where you've got kind of like a mushroom style head on the top, it becomes a little bit more difficult to get them out, but it can be done. Once in a while you kind of have to take a knife and cut down the side to get it out, but this one should pop out okay. All right, so I left it overnight, and there is the newly cast mounting lug. I extracted from the mold. So basically, I'll just grind that off flat. I'm actually I'll make some marks actually on the fairing, just to make sure that I keep everything centered. So when I glue it back in, it will go in the right place. But yeah, there it is. So there it is, kind of set in place there. What I might consider doing, I think, is I wonder if I put the trim piece back on, that might help just make sure it stays properly aligned. I'll think about that. It might be more accurate when I'm done. So this one particular lower panel, side of the belly pan, has been painted a different shade of yellow. I guess it was repaired probably after. This is I'll call it the first shade of yellow that it was painted, and then I guess it was damaged and then they actually taped off the black R decal there, and then sprayed primer and another slightly different shade of yellow over it. But I mean, this, it just peels right off. It's not really stuck down very well, which in some respects is a good thing, because it makes my job easier of getting that layer of paint off. Peeling the clear coat off this is pretty easy. Beats sanding it. So the next job is going to be stripping the paint off this tank. So this is the replacement tank. If you recall the earlier videos, the one that I tried to de-rust, there was basically nothing left of the tank by the time I got partway through that process. So it was not savable. So I'd already purchased this one. Again, I wasn't surprised at the state of the tank, which is why almost immediately I found this on eBay and grabbed it. So yeah, a couple of marks on here where you see I've got the gold Sharpie. I've already pulled the dents as much as I could out of here. I am going to try to do a little bit more work. There's a bit of a crown right here, and so I might try to pull it again. The problem is where I need to pull here, the paint is just letting go, which is why we have those two gray spots. It's down in the primer. It doesn't want to pull out anymore, and it's not bad. I could fill that quite easily, but what I'm more concerned about is there is a very slight crown there, which is kind of where when the metal pushed in, it kind of popped up a little bit there. It's very, very slight, but I can still see it and feel it. So I'm going to work that a little bit first, and then I'm going to I'll strip the whole paint, a whole tank of paint, and then any of the little imperfections will be easily dealt with. But I think there's one or two on the other side as well. Yeah, just a couple of small ones on the other side, but very, very small. Generally speaking, the tank is in really good shape. No rust inside, so that's good news. So there's about 3 layers of paint. Well, there's this kind of color here, and then there's so it was kind of a reddy pink color and black, and then there was a primer, and then there was a black, and this, I thought this was actually primer, but it's like a burnt orange metallic, and then on top of that there was all black. So, but there was also coats of clear coat in there as well. So if you count the clear coat and the primer, 6 layers so far. So I'm down to the metal, so that I imagine that's about all we're gonna find. So yeah, I'm just gonna keep peeling it, and for me it's just less messy to use the paint stripper as opposed to sanding it all off, because I work, as I said before, I work in my little showroom area here, and it just creates too much mess to sand everything every time. So it looks like this one might have been an original black and red GSX-R 750 tank. So definitely down to the original factory paint there. It's hard as nails, very difficult to get off. Same as the red here. Yeah, but yeah, it's generally speaking, so far so good. I haven't found any filler in it yet. It doesn't seem to be any evidence of it on, certainly not on this side of the tank, so fingers crossed. Yeah, we'll keep stripping it. I can sort of tell here too where the original paint line was, so probably just right around here, and then you can see where the color of the steel underneath is a little bit different, and then it would have come down right to about that corner. So that helps me get my paint lines a little more accurate when I'm ready for that. So I ran out of my my paint stripper. I'd had that bottle for a while. Last time I bought that 1 liter can of paint stripper, it was I think about $18. So now it's, for the same one, it's $32, and this 3.78 liter bottle was $90. Can you believe that? I don't know what you're experiencing where you are as far as inflation goes, but here in Ontario, Canada, it is absolute madness. So the heavy-duty contractor grade stuff that I've been trying to strip the rest of this paint with has done absolutely nothing. Nothing at all. Not a single shred of this red or black has come off. It's just like it isn't even on there. It's absolutely crap. So I took it back, got my money back, and then I went back to my trusted super dissolver, which was $20 less for the same amount. And I think in the future I'm actually gonna, if I'm gonna spend 90 or 100 bucks a gallon, it's gonna be the aircraft stripper. I'll go to the auto supply store, the place that they sell auto body stuff, and buy it there. So almost all the paint's off. We're getting real close. The good news is there is not a single bit of filler in this tank, which is fantastic. There's a couple of small kind of dings here. There's one right here, and a couple of other small ones. I might try to see if I can pull that out. It wasn't working with the crappy paint that was on there. The glue just wasn't sticking. It just kept pulling off, so I thought I'd try it with no paint on it. So we'll see if I can get that one out. It's got a little bit of a crown there, you can see. So I might have to hammer work that crown a little bit to get it to release the dent. But yeah, generally speaking, it's in incredibly good shape. And there's no rusting in the tank either. Hard to see in there, but... And yeah, quite happy with that. It's coming along nicely. And then basically once the top side's finished, I'll flip it upside down and do the bottom there, get all the paint off that. And then we'll start filling and priming and doing all that other good stuff. So the filler's done on the tank. Got everything nice and flat. And this is basically the first coat of etching primer. And yeah, that's gonna do it for this video, I think. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna save everybody and spare everybody the pain and suffering of watching any more body work. There's still a lot to go, and it's just basically more of the same. Sanding, filling, priming, and all that kind of good stuff. So I think the next time you see the body work, it should all be in primer and ready to go in the paint booth. There's still, I'm gonna say it's still a lot to do. I mean, I haven't touched really up here much yet. That's why it's not got primer on it, but I didn't want everything else getting flash rusted while I work my way through the process. There's still, you know, all kinds of finishing to do on this body work. The major repairs have been done, but there's still a few things left to do. There's still smoothing, there's still filling, there's still sanding everything off, and it's got to go. I think I might go to the paint booth actually and seal it, or at least put a quality 2K primer on it. I don't really want to rattle can prime this whole set of bodywork, so we'll see. Maybe I'll show you that at the paint booth in one of the upcoming videos. But as I said, for now, that is it. Stay tuned for more. There's a long way to go, and fingers crossed that my my donor bike shows up soon. Thanks very much. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. Really do appreciate it. And add your comments down below. I appreciate all the comments and the input and advice. And we'll talk to you next time. Thanks.